The wedding tent stood at the edge of the hollow pack territory. White cloth stretched between old oak trees, flowers woven through every post. Alpha King Damian Cross stood near the back of the gathered crowd, arms folded, his face unreadable. He had not wanted to come. Weddings bored him, and this one meant nothing to him personally. It was politics, nothing more. The Hallow Pack and the Reed Pack were joining through marriage, and as the ruling Alpha King over all the packs in the region, his presence was expected, a show of approval, a show of peace. He had planned to stand quietly at the back, nod when necessary, and leave before the celebration dinner. That was the whole plan. Then the bride walked in. She came down the aisle slowly, her hand resting lightly on her father's arm, her long brown hair loose over her shoulders, a simple crown of white flowers sitting just above her forehead. She was not dressed like royalty. She was the daughter of a low-ranking beta from the Hallow Pack, marrying a warrior named Silas from the same pack. No one important, no one Damian had ever met or thought about. But when the wind shifted and her scent reached him, something inside Damian went very still. It was not just a pleasant smell. It hit him like a wall, like a hand closing around his chest. His wolf, who had been silent and controlled for years, suddenly surged forward inside him, pressing against his ribs, screaming one word over and over. "Mate." Damian's breath caught. He did not move, did not make a sound, but every instinct in his body wanted to cross the space between them, to stop this wedding before it could begin, to pull this stranger away from the altar, and never let her go. His hands curled into fists at his sides. His jaw locked so tightly it ached. He told himself it was a mistake. It happened sometimes, they said, a false pull, a trick of scent and distance. But he had heard stories his whole life about the mate bond, how it did not lie, how it could not be mistaken for anything else. And looking at her now, he knew with a terrible certainty that this was real. She was his, and she was about to marry someone else. The ceremony continued. The pack elder spoke words of joining, words about loyalty and partnership and forever. Silas, the groom, looked at his bride like she was the only person in the world, his eyes soft, his hands slightly shaking as he took hers. He clearly loved her. Damian could see that much, even through the haze of his own shock. And the bride, Elena, someone whispered her name nearby, smiled at Silas, a small, warm, genuine smile. But Damian, watching closely despite himself, thought he saw something else beneath it, a flicker of uncertainty, a shadow behind her eyes that no one else seemed to notice. He told himself it didn't matter. He was the Alpha King. He had responsibilities far greater than one wedding, one woman, one unexpected pull of instinct. Interrupting this ceremony would embarrass two packs who had worked for months to build this alliance. It could unravel years of careful peace. A king did not throw away stability for something as fragile and uncertain as a feeling, no matter how powerful. So he stood at the back of the tent, and he watched her say her vows to another man, and he said nothing at all. The vows were spoken, the rings were exchanged. The elder pronounced them bonded, and the crowd erupted into cheering and clapping. Somewhere, music began to play. Damian remained frozen for one more moment, before he turned and walked out of the tent, out into the cool evening air, his heart pounding in a way it had not pounded in years. He left before the celebration dinner began, just as he had planned, but nothing about that night went as he had planned. The weeks that followed were difficult in a way Damian had never experienced. The mate bond, once triggered, did not fade simply because he willed it to. It sat inside his chest like a low, constant ache, a hollow feeling that grew sharper whenever pack business brought him anywhere near Hallow territory. He found himself thinking about her at strange hours, during council meetings, while reviewing border reports, in the quiet moments before sleep. Her scent lingered in his memory long after that single afternoon. He told no one, not his advisors, not his closest guards. A king confessing to a mate bond with a married woman from a minor pack was not information he could afford to let loose. It would create exactly the kind of scandal he had avoided by staying silent at the wedding. So he buried it, or tried to, throwing himself into his duties, telling himself that time would ease the pull. It did not ease. If anything, it grew heavier. Elena, for her part, had no idea what had happened to her that day. She only knew that something had shifted inside her the moment the Alpha King's cold eyes had met hers across the wedding tent, just for a second, right before she said her vows. It was strange and unsettling, a feeling she could not explain to herself, let alone to anyone else. In the weeks after her wedding, she tried to settle into her new life with Silas. He was kind to her, gentle and patient, and she cared for him deeply. They had grown up together, played together as children, and when he asked her to marry him, she had said yes without much hesitation. It seemed like the natural next step. Her family approved. His family approved. It was, by every outward measure, a good match. But something was missing, and she could not name it. At night, she found herself dreaming of eyes she had never truly looked into, golden brown, sharp, and distant. She would wake with her heart racing, an ache in her chest she did not understand, and beside her, Silas would sleep peacefully, unaware. Elena told herself it was nerves. New marriages were often like this, she thought. Strange feelings, restless nights. It would pass with time. She did not know about the mate bond, not really. Her family, being of lower rank within the pack, had never spoken much about it to her. It was something whispered about among higher families, something that concerned alphas and betas of importance, not ordinary daughters like her. No one had ever explained the signs to her, the pull, the ache, the way a true mate's presence could undo a person from the inside out. So she carried the confusion alone, tucking it away, trying to be a good wife, trying to convince herself that whatever she felt did not matter. Then, one afternoon nearly 2 months after the wedding, Alpha King Damien arrived in Hallow territory again, this time for a formal meeting between pack leaders regarding shared hunting grounds. Elena was helping prepare food for the visiting delegation, as many of the pack women did during important gatherings. She did not expect to see him up close. She certainly did not expect what happened when she did. She was carrying a tray of bread through the gathering hall when their eyes met across the room. It happened in an instant. The tray nearly slipped from her hands. Her breath caught, and for one dizzying moment, the noise of the hall seemed to fade into nothing. Damien's expression, usually so composed, flickered with something raw before he forced it back under control. Neither of them said a word. She set the tray down and left the hall as quickly as she could without drawing attention, her heart hammering, her hands trembling. She did not understand what was happening to her. But she knew, deep down, that it had something to do with him. Silas noticed the change in his wife over the following days. She grew quiet, distracted, staring off into nothing during meals, flinching whenever the Alpha King's name came up in conversation. He was not a foolish man. He loved Elena enough to notice when something was wrong, and he loved her enough to ask. One evening, sitting together by their small fire, he finally spoke. "You have not been yourself," he said gently, "since the wedding, since the king visited. Talk to me, Elena, please." She wanted to deny it, to reassure him that everything was fine, but the words would not come. Instead, tears filled her eyes, and she admitted that she did not understand what was happening to her, that she felt pulled toward something, someone, she could not explain, and that it frightened her. Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then, with a heaviness in his voice, he said something that broke her heart and freed her at the same time. "I think you may be feeling the mate bond," he said. "I have heard the elders speak of it. I did not want to believe it applied to you, to us," he explained, as much as he understood what it meant. That some wolves were born with a single true match somewhere in the world, and when that bond was triggered by proximity, it could not simply be ignored or reasoned away. It explained everything, her distraction, her dreams, the way she seemed to fold in on herself whenever the Alpha King's name was spoken. Elena wept, apologizing over and over, insisting she had not chosen this, that she cared for Silas deeply, that she never meant to hurt him. Silas held her hands and told her he believed her. He was hurt, deeply and honestly hurt, but he was not cruel, and he loved her enough to see clearly even through his own pain. "I married you hoping we could build something real together," he said quietly, "but I cannot keep you tied to me while your heart aches for someone else. That is not a marriage. That is a cage, and I will not be the one who cages you." In pack custom, When a true mate bond was discovered after a marriage had already taken place, there existed an old and rarely used practice, allowing the marriage to be respectfully dissolved, without shame or scandal, so long as both parties agreed. It was a practice from a gentler, older time, meant to honor fate over ceremony. Silas, through his grief, chose this path. He requested a meeting with the pack elders the very next day. Word reached Damien only days later, delivered by a messenger who could barely hide his own surprise at the news. The Alpha King sat in stunned silence when he heard it. Elena's marriage had been formally released, by mutual agreement, on the grounds of a discovered mate bond. For the first time in weeks, the tight ache in his chest eased, just slightly, replaced by something that felt almost like hope, though he barely recognized the feeling anymore. He rode to Hallow territory himself, arriving without the usual formality of guards and announcements. He found Elena near the edge of the training grounds, standing alone, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. She turned as she heard him approach, and this time, neither of them looked away. "I should have said something," Damien admitted, his voice quieter than she had ever heard it. "That day at your wedding, I felt it the moment you walked in. I told myself, a king does not interrupt another man's happiness over instinct alone. I told myself it was the right choice, but I have regretted my silence every day since." Elena studied him for a long moment, the wind gently moving her hair. "I did not understand what I was feeling," she said. "No one ever explained it to me. I only knew something inside me changed the moment I saw you, and I did not know what to do with that. I am sorry for the pain this caused Silas. He deserved better than confusion. He showed more honor in releasing you than most men would have," Damien said. "I will not forget that." They stood together as the sun sank lower, saying little else that evening, both of them aware that trust and understanding could not be built in a single conversation. Elena needed time to grieve the marriage that had ended, and Damien needed to learn patience, something that had never come naturally to him. But for the first time since the wedding tent, neither of them felt the aching hollowness that had followed them for weeks. In the months that followed, they built something slowly and honestly. Damien visited Hallow territory often, no longer hiding behind political excuses. Elena, in turn, began traveling to the king's territory, learning about the responsibilities and challenges of the life she was slowly stepping into. They talked for hours at a time, about small things and large things, about fears and hopes, allowing the bond between them to grow into something real, rather than simply relying on instinct alone. Silas, in time, found his own peace. He remained within the Hallow Pack, respected for the grace he had shown, and eventually found companionship with someone new, someone who looked at him the way he had once hoped Elena would. A year after that first wedding, another ceremony took place, this time beneath the great oak trees at the heart of the Alpha King's own territory. Elena walked down the aisle again, but this time, there was no hidden ache behind her smile, no shadow of uncertainty in her eyes. Damien stood waiting for her, his composed expression finally softened into something the pack had rarely seen from their king: open, honest joy. Among those gathered to watch was Silas, standing quietly near the back, offering a small, sincere smile as the vows were spoken. Fate, it seemed, had simply taken the long way to find where it was always meant to go.